Hey, if you're pregnant over 40, I have just the community for you. It's a private community away from Facebook where women just like you come together to meet and support one another during pregnancy. To sign up for the waitlist, go to over40fabulousandpregnant.com/waitlist and be the first to know when the membership is open. I can't wait to see you inside. Welcome to Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant. I'm your host, Jamie Massey, and you're listening to episode 28. If you're looking for pregnancy stories of women over 40, you've come to the right place. Today on the show, we have Ellie from Melbourne, Australia, who is a mom of 3 and works in technology. In this episode, she shares how this was such a wonderful surprise. She also thought she was starting menopause like many others. I really think you're going to like her energy. This girl did 10,000 steps a day, including during labor. Yeah, even during labor, she did 10,000 steps. I'll let her explain why. She also tells us how an emergency C-section was her planned birth. And you know what? I'm going to keep it short today. Let's get into Ellie's pregnancy story at 45. Ellie, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Australia.
Thank you so much, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be here. And obviously I've seen your Instagram page and, your podcast, and I'm delighted that you're taking the time to interview me.
Yeah, and you are barely postpartum. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Ellie. I am a mum of 3. So I have 2 girls from my previous relationship, and they are 16 and 10. And I had natural pregnancies for them, and I thought my journey was finished. And then I had one of those midlife moments where a relationship wasn't what I wanted out of life, and I took a risk because I think sometimes we are scared, and I rebuilt my life, and I'm now in a loving and happy relationship with my partner, and we just had a son just over 2 weeks ago. So that's my journey from like my motherhood journey. And I work in technology and enjoy spending time with my kids, getting out to nature, and yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, and congratulations, by the way, just 2 weeks out.
2 weeks out, and this is the first day I've worn mascara. So everyone, I've made an effort. I just want to let you know that if it wasn't for the podcast, I might not have the mascara on today. I do actually put a lipstick on occasionally since the baby, because it like brightens me up and it reminds me of the old me. And then there's obviously the new me, but I've gone out of my way today.
Did you mention your age yet? I don't remember that.
No, sorry. So I am 45 years young today, and I fell pregnant when I was 45, and I gave birth when I was 45.
Awesome. And will you tell us how it all started?
Sure. Well, this is interesting because I don't know how many of you out there are like a Dr. Google fan, but I'm going to start with the Dr. Google side of it. I wasn't planning a pregnancy, and I was sick of being on the contraception pill. And I remember Googling the odds of falling pregnant at 45, because it was actually about 4 months prior to I fell pregnant. I Googled it, and I was like, oh, okay, the odds are like, I think Dr. Google said, it was 3% or less. And, Dr. Google's just a random statistic, right? It doesn't mean for anyone that's a true number. But obviously, being a Dr. Google fan, I was just like, had a moment, Googled that and thought, well, you know what, I'll go off the pill. But I was always open to another baby, but we weren't planning. So other than that, I thought I'll go off that. And I didn't want to keep using contraception in that way, because I'd used it for quite a number of years. And then I just went on with life. And for the next sort of 4 months, I didn't really think about it because the odds just seemed so small. And even then, with those odds, I was thinking in my mindset that you'd have to like plan it out and look at your contraception window and things. And I wasn't doing any of those things. And had a number of friends who weren't using contraception and you know, they were a similar age and none of us were falling pregnant or planning to. So that's where I started. And then after about 4 months, I would have fallen pregnant, but I still didn't know it at this stage. But one thing I would say about my lifestyle leading up to this, which I believe, forget the age, I think it had a massive impact on my pregnancy, just because I'm a believer of nature and trying to, you know, I think if I said what's my number one priority in life, it's my health, because without my health, I've got no wealth. I lived a very sort of healthy lifestyle. I have a kind of mainly a plant-based diet, and that's a whole food plant-based diet. I did intermittent fasting. I was really curious on longevity because I wanted to live a long life for my daughters, and I followed a number of scientists who do podcasts on longevity, and I was also taking a number of longevity supplements, and we can talk about that later, but one of those supplements had been, and I didn't know it at the time, but had been linked to improving the egg quality of mice. And although obviously you can't just, you know, it's very hard to do tests on pregnant women or women who want to be pregnant. It's not ethically, you have to go through a large number of steps. So they haven't done any studies on that, but they've done studies on mammals and it was the only sort of supplement they'd found that had improved egg quality. But I wasn't taking it for that. They were also found to help with glucose levels, and which is linked to longevity, and also just in general trying to live as healthy as I could. So that's like a little bit of background that I think you can't put aside and not think there was some relevance. I think that definitely helped me in many ways on my journey of having a kind of healthy lifestyle. And then what happened was I had a little bit of spotting, and my periods had changed from a sort of 4-day cycle to a 3 over the years, the later, like the early part of my 40s. So I just assumed that it had moved to 1 day, and I was like, oh, this must be the start of perimenopause. So I'm going to call it a 1-day period where I would have been pregnant and didn't know. And I, you know, just continued on for another, you know, month or so. And then one day I went to a lunch meeting at work, and I was so hungry at this lunch meeting. I remember I had a big breakfast, I had a lunch, and then I wanted a second lunch. And I thought, you know, I know my habits. And I was like, this is just really bizarre. I've never been this hungry before. And you know, I think I Googled again, Dr. Google, which by the way, I don't recommend. So please don't take my advice on this. But Dr. Google, I think it said like, you know, it could be thyroid issues. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll go to the doctors if this continues, but I'll do something in the back of my mind. And I always go, it's your intuition, and always listen to your intuition, and it whispers. Whereas, you know, our logical mind is like the Dr. Google mind. It yells at you. It tells you to look up things, and your intuition is really tiny. And it said, you know, you need to do a pregnancy test. So I thought, okay, what do I, you know, I'll do one. I'll come home and I'll on the way home, I'll buy a pregnancy test. And, you know, that little voice was thinking that there was maybe going to be something on that test. But the logic of me went to the toilet to do the test going, it's going to be a thyroid issue. It's going to be something else. You need to go to the GP, which is the overactive mind. And when I did the test, it came up positive, and I was like, and it even makes you want to like cry a bit when I say it, because it was so unexpected but expected, and I can't explain the logic of that. I think it's, as I said, the only logic to that is there's always something, a tiny thing inside you that sometimes knows something that you don't often listen to. And I did like another test, and it came in a pack of 2, and that test said I was positive. And I was like, you know what, I still, the logical brain goes, no, look at the statistics. That can't be true. Go down the street and buy another test. I went down and bought, you know, another 2 tests, and they all came up positive. So I called my partner, and he was overjoyed. So he has a son who's 18 from a previous relationship. But, you know, we had talked about having kids, and I said to him, even this makes me emotional to say, I used to say to him, you know, I wish I could give you a kid, but I'm older in life. And he would say, next life. Oh. You know, he would say, we'll do it in the next life. And, you know, I had this like, I was like, yeah, we'll do it in the next life. And yeah, so to tell him that, I knew, you know, because we'd had those conversations and we'd met later in life, you know, it just happened. It wasn't going to be the next life. It was this life, this moment now. So I automatically, I had a feeling, this is everything is okay. So again, the intuition voice said, it's all going to be fine, because often then if you get onto Dr. Google again, it's going to tell you a bunch of statistics. And I had a mindset of, screw the statistics, but I did use the F word in my mind, because the statistics are so terrible. If you look at statistics and you think of yourself as a statistic, then you won't have the right mindset. You will go to the negative in life, because the mind, we're hardwired to avoid pain. That's the number one thing about us. I always thought we were hardwired for pleasure, but pleasure is what we find, but we're actually hardwired against pain. So, you look at those statistics and they're painful sometimes to look at, and that's what I did. And in the past, and I was like, I'm not going to be a statistic. So that was my mindset from the start, is screw those statistics. Let's do this.
And how was your pregnancy?
This pregnancy, if we go to what people will tell you, they'll go, oh, you're old, or you'll get ageism towards pregnancy. And I'll start with the start, when I went to the GP, because I backed the tests up with a blood test. A lovely GP, and she said to me, do you want to keep the baby? And, she wouldn't have said that if I was 30 and pregnant. It's because I was 45. And I just thought, wow, and it took me back to a story I know very familiar with, which is my mum at 37 when she was pregnant. So my mum had her main children in her 20s and then had a late pregnancy, which, by the way, I know 37 and 40s is normal these days, but back in my mum's days, it was like, it was considered the terrible word that you often hear, the geriatric pregnancy. And the doctor said the same thing to her. It was her fourth child, and they said, being this ancient woman in their mindset back then in the 1970s, they said to her, do you want to keep the pregnancy? And, she said she had no doubt in her mind that she wanted to keep the pregnancy. But when I grew up, all the other mothers were like at least 10 years younger than my mother. Not that made an impact, but I'm familiar with that story of why she would have had the same thing happen to her. Obviously I didn't take offense to it, because, you can't live in other people's minds and how they think and so forth. But I did say to her, very interesting enough, I said, oh, how many people have walked into this office this year, 45 and pregnant? And she said none. And I said, well, how many walk in here pregnant, 45? Naturally, like with a surprise pregnancy. She said, I've had one other in the last 30 years.
Wow.
That wasn't planned. And I was like, wow. And I said, well, what did she do? Did she, because we'd had, she'd had that conversation. I said, did she keep the baby? And she said she didn't want to keep the baby because she thought that the age was against her. And these little stories, and I know they can sometimes be hard maybe for the listeners, but they were also what fueled me, because when someone tells me maybe you can't do things, or society says it's not possible, or it's going to be hard, it's going to be difficult pregnancy, my mindset is, no, I'm not going to take that on board. So how was my pregnancy? To answer your question, and I needed to give the backstory to really give, people an understanding, was from the start, my mindset was this pregnancy is going to be as good as I can make it. Now, obviously things can go against you. You can get gestational diabetes. You can get high blood pressure. You can have high loads of morning sickness, things that are difficult. But I decided I'd research as much as I could on what can I do to keep healthy in this pregnancy that's in my control. So obviously these things are in my control. And I just followed protocols of trying to sleep when I could, eating as healthy as I could, and a lot of exercise. I am a great believer in exercise. And when I say exercise, I wasn't like running marathons. I'm talking about like walking and light exercise. And I just committed every day to doing 10,000 steps, even if I did it in 3 walks, it didn't matter. But just to give my body energy, because that obviously creates certain hormones that help you feel good. And even on days where I didn't feel like necessarily walking that much, I would continue to do those exercises. And that's helped my pregnancy. So my pregnancy in my 20s and my 30s, so I had one when I was 28 and one at pregnancy at 34, this was the easiest pregnancy by far. And I
no way.
swear to you, it was all mindset because I was determined it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was determined to pass every bloody test they threw at me. Whatever test you throw at me, I'm going to do everything in my power to pass. It was almost like I was sitting exams because that's how, like, everyone, even if you follow some of the women's groups on Facebook, over 40 and pregnant or over 45 and pregnant, a lot of the things come up about anxiety around these tests. And if you actually did a survey of women who are pregnant over 40, there'll be a lot of anxiety because of the stigma and the potential statistics of all the tests you've got to go through. And you feel like it can be very scary. And I was like, I'm not going to buy into this story. I'm not going to buy into it. And I'm going to just do what's in my power. And I'm not going to spend hours worrying about the results of a NIP test because it's out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
That mindset, again, was key to my pregnancy. Otherwise, I would be in fear. And I feel like other studies show that the babies can feel what you feel. So I just wanted to give him all that I could to support him in the womb.
Mm-hmm. I love that. What about a doctor? Did you use the same doctor you have been going to?
Yeah, so in Australia, there's a public and a private system. It's a little bit different to America. We're really blessed that if you have no money, you have no basically support in terms of having the money or an employee paying for your private health, you will get the public system for free. So that means if you had a C-section, emergency, if you had a natural birth, you will have access to all the services and you'll pay minimal costs. You might pay partly for some extra tests you might want or etc. And I did have private health insurance, so I decided to go down the private system. And how that works in Australia is they'll pay for your private health, depending on your cover, will pay for the hospital, but you'll still have to pay for an obstetrician. And an obstetrician belongs to a private hospital. This is what I mean, is you can't get into a private hospital without using an obstetrician service. So I did go out and find an obstetrician, which was a group of 5 women in a practice, so that I knew that, if that obstetrician was away or something happened, I'd have another woman. I just felt more comfortable with that. And I ended up finding an obstetrician who was, a great obstetrician, and continued down that path with the obstetrician. And yeah, and it's mainly for they're there. You'll get a number of appointments beforehand. You'll get extra tests because of your age, and then I went to a private hospital for the birth.
Was there anything you were looking for in an obstetrician?
No, I'm a little bit more practical, as in, like, I was like, I don't really mind if that obstetrician is not available on the day. I just wanted to give birth in a hospital environment, and I wanted it to be as comfortable as possible. I wanted my own room because I wanted my partner to be able to stay there. So for me, it was more around that than anything else.
And was there any product that you couldn't live without that you would recommend that helped you during birth?
That's a brilliant question. And I'm sure if you listen to a lot of podcasts, there'll be 100 different products. And you go, what is the number one product? Well, guess what? Mine costs you nothing. It's zero. It's in you. It's your inner lighthouse. And that's your mindset. Because without that, no product will ever give you the same impact of how you think and how you buy in, especially being either, trying to conceive after 40 or being pregnant after 45. There is a different stigma attached to, as I explained to you, being in your 20s or maybe mid-30s. So for me, it was the mindset. And where do I get inspiration from? It'll be online. Like, and I'll give you an example. Like, there's a ex-Navy SEAL called David Goggins, and he's like, go hard, and he's really hardcore. And for me, I was a big David Goggins fan, and he helped me significantly with mindset. Like, walking, I would go, oh, what's David going to say? You need to do your walk today. You need to do this to help the baby. That product's going to get you further. Or, with eating, it's a number of scientists and longevity. I'd be like, you feel like something bad to eat, have a bit of that, and then eat something good as well, because we have cravings. And, I'm not like a complete control freak who never eats chocolate, but I'd be like, you're allowed to have this many pieces and you've got it of chocolate. You can't have the whole chocolate bar, like the whole block of chocolate or something. So it was people like that. I'm also a big fan of some of the, people who follow more traditional Buddhists. I'm not a Buddhist, but I love, people like Sadhguru, and who are all about being present and not buying into fear. They'll talk a lot about that, the fear mindset. This product of a healthy mind was the biggest gift in listening to these people that helped me in my pregnancy, that'll help me with my baby. And it's the only product I need. Everything else is insignificant compared to the product of mindset. And there's so many great people out there who can help you with that. You're not alone on a mindset. It's not like mindset is compound interest. It's building your thought process every single day to get through, because that's going to get you through the hard days of pregnancy, right? And there will be hard days. That'll be the hard days of postpartum, and there'll be hard days. And without that, to me, all the products in the world are nothing compared to that.
Yeah, I've done a lot of life coaching myself, and it has just been completely life-changing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you need, it's in your darkest hours where you can see the benefits of those. And we will all have dark hours, and that's with the hormonal changes and the things that go on in pregnancy. It's what I class as a marathon. I was building up to have this labor, and it was a marathon, and you wouldn't go into a marathon without preparing, right? Mentally preparing, because who wants to really run like 40 kilometers, right? There's a mindset in that. Your body doesn't go, hey, I'm going to get up and go 40 kilometers today. So for me, it was that.
Yeah, I love that. And did you find out the gender when you were pregnant?
Yeah, I'm impatient by nature. So I wouldn't class myself as the most patient woman on earth. And the thought of not knowing until my beautiful baby was born was just like too hard for me. It's not planning the rooms or anything. I just wanted to know. And in my mind, again, the logic mind, not my intuition mind or my heart center, I was like, you're going to have a girl because you've had 2 girls. And I know that obviously sperm decides, but in my mind it was going to be a girl. And I remember even Googling, again, Dr. Google telling me that older women are more likely to have females than males. And so when I did find out, and that was through a NIP test, and anyone who's sort of over 40 and pregnant will probably be offered a NIP test, which is obviously based on not just the gender, but will give you if you've got any chromosome potential disorders, etc. So I found out through that at around 11 weeks. And I found out I was pregnant at close to 9 weeks.
Oh, you found out at 9 weeks.
Yeah. So that's the hunger thing, because I missed the first, let's call it was the first month. And the time I got hungry enough, I'm going to call hungry enough to be pregnant, that's when I realized. So I missed it. And I think I was lucky that I wasn't any kind of, I guess, pharmaceuticals or anything that could have impacted that period, because I wasn't taking folic acid or other things that they recommend. I was just, like I said, I was living as health as wealth lifestyle as much as I could. But yeah, I was because that would have been my next concern, thinking, oh gosh, you didn't know. But yeah, luckily.
Yeah. What about cravings?
That's a good question. I think you certainly wouldn't want to be on a keto diet or something if you were pregnant, because I craved carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are, obviously, depending on what ones you take, they can be slow burning. That will give you more fuel and energy. So it was more carbohydrate based food. But one of my weird habits was, I think because I used to intermittent fast, so I wasn't always eating I'd eat in a 16-hour fasting window. But when I was pregnant, obviously there's no way I would intermittent fast. But secondly, I would wake up nearly every single night with what I call pregnancy insomnia. So it was hormone related, for about an hour to 2 hours, around about 2 o'clock-ish. And I would eat in that window. I'd go downstairs and I'd have to have a bagel. Again, good carbohydrates, starving for bagels. And that baby, his little toes, his little fingers is made from peanut butter with banana on a bagel. Like, that was the thing, which isn't something I've had before. Like, I've never put bananas on bagels, but I just craved it, and I'd have it night after night after night. So yeah, I look at him and I say, you are made from peanut butter, bagels, and bananas. Like, this is what you come from. And this was our after midnight meal every night.
That sounds delicious with a little bit of honey. That'd be perfect. Yeah,
we used to put a bit of honey and some cinnamon as well, just on that. Yeah, that was I don't know if that was a craving. I just think it was a craving, but it was also my need to fuel the body. It wasn't just on the normal eating window. It was like I needed that extra push. And then And then I could sleep. So without this, I wasn't able to get back to sleep. So it was kind of like a sleep aid as well. For some reason, having a bit of food in my stomach would help with the sleep insomnia.
Mm-hmm. So did you continue your exercise and diet throughout the pregnancy?
I'm not a normal woman, sometimes people say, because I'm quite driven. And I think that comes from being a single mum for quite many years and bringing up two girls financially on my, doing that on my own and paying all the bills myself. And you have to have drive, right? Because there's who else is going to have your corner, and you've got these little people relying on you. So drive is something that I have naturally, I think. And so for me, I was driven to do these steps like a mad woman. Like I'm even wearing a Fitbit now. So I was, tracking this, and I would make sure I met those goals every day. But I'm a busy person. So I was like working. So sometimes I would do work calls. I'd often pick up my phone and I'd like walking as I'm talking on the phone for work to get my step count up. So I'm being practical. I'm not like, I know it's hard to fit that in, but I would do it all the time. I'd be just like walking, talking. I could do easily 3,000 steps on the phone a day. Just
wow.
Making sure every time I was on the phone, I'd get up and move. And, those things helped me, but I felt so good from this. And also it was just my time for myself. And I know it releases certain hormones that can make you feel good. And especially in pregnancy where your hormones are all over, it's really important to try and keep a healthy well-being in your mind. So that for me wasn't a problem. In fact, this is how crazy I am. Day before he was born, I did 10,000 steps. In labor, I was induced, and we can talk about that later, but I actually walked. I wanted to do 10,000 steps even in labor, which, by the way, why would you do that? Is that because she's obsessed with the number? No, it was trying to help engage his head. So we were allowed to go out of the hospital, and I convinced my partner to walk from Melbourne to North Melbourne, which is a number of kilometers away. And he thought it was insane. And my walking was so slow. It was like, and every time I'd stop and I'd go, labor pain. And I go, we have to make it to this particular road in North Melbourne, and we have to keep walking. And he just was like, he knows that he's with a woman who's, I'm going to use the word relentless sometimes. And that was my way of coping. Like I felt like it was a pain relief I was like, I'm going to walk this kid out. We're going to walk this baby out. So yeah, I was walking from start to finish with a little David Goggins in my mind saying, get up, go, go, go. And that's what I did.
That's awesome. How did you prepare for the baby?
Look, I try and be as present as I can in life. So what does that mean? So what tends to happen when we live in the future is we think of 1,000 scenarios that could happen. And we could spend, most women, I'd say, if we looked when they're pregnant, they'll spend a lot of time thinking about the labor, which is completely natural because it's the unknown, right? And we're thinking, what's going to happen? Is it going to be natural? Is it going to be in a birthing pool? Am I going to need an emergency ambulance? Am I going to be in a hospital? What are all the thousands of scenarios? Because there's millions of birth stories out there, and they're all different. So, how did I prepare? I just prepared for anything is possible and everything is possible scenario. So what I mean by that is I wanted to go in for like as natural birth as I possibly could, but I was open to anything and everything, as in like if I'm in there and I need a C-section for some reason, or if he's breached and they're recommending for safety reasons you need a C-section and he doesn't move, then I'll do a C-section. And in the pregnancy, I was like, whatever happens will happen. That's out of my control. I'll go with the recommended advice within reason. Like I'm not just going to have an elective C-section because I didn't want just that. Because they said, you just need one because you're old. I wouldn't have gone with that. But so I was open-minded, and that helped me with what ended up happening. Because I think if I had set going, I need like music, I need this particular essence coming into the room, I need whale music, I need this, I need that. None of those things would have happened because it wasn't, that was like a future thought, and what ended up happening on the day were different circumstances. So I'm glad that I didn't write a plan. I refused to write a plan. I just wanted a healthy baby in the best way possible for safety for me and the baby. And that was my mindset from the start.
And since you had 2 other pregnancies, did you feel the need for classes?
No, I didn't feel the need for classes, but I do think like as a first-time mum, I would recommend that. It will probably ease the mindset because you'll learn some breathing techniques and things. I haven't ever done a class. I'm a bit of a Wild West. Let's just go into this and let's see what happens. And I get a bit excited by adventures anyway. So I didn't take a class with any of my pregnancies, but I'm always open to the possibilities. But I do naturally know a lot of breathing techniques through meditation practices. So I knew that would help. And, I never had those meditation practices in my last pregnancies. So they definitely helped at the start of my labor because, which was great, because I think if you do any kind of meditation practice or breath work, you almost don't need to probably do a breath work class on breathing during labor, because you'll know intuitively how to do that because you've spent hours over many years or weeks or months doing breath work for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So take us back to the day birth started.
Yeah, so the day birth started because, I wanted to make the most of my maternity cover. And in Australia, just so people know, like you don't get, the government will pay you a number of weeks at the very minimum wage, or your employee might have specific benefits, but I didn't have any benefits with my employee, and I wanted to earn more than the minimum wage in terms of, using savings, etc. So I planned to work until the day he was born. So I actually ended up working the morning he was born. In fact, I remember at 3:00 when I had to go to the hospital, I was like thinking, God, I've got a 3:00 meeting. Like, I wonder if I can just fit this meeting in because we have this big deal going on. I need to try and be on this last call. Obviously, it was an insane thought, but I think that's also a way of me controlling being in labor, thinking if I don't focus on if I don't focus on the labor, it'll help my mind, clear my mind. So can I just do this call? Obviously, my partner thought it was crazy because like, you can't do this call. And so I didn't do the call, but that, I think that working to the last minute, and I can work from home. So obviously I'm not a waitress or someone who has to be on their feet all day or in a job where it would be really difficult to work. So I worked up till that day. And then on that day, I was actually asked to be induced because of the potential size of my baby. So his name is Ned, by the way. And Ned was, according to the scans, he was at the 90th percentile, and they were worried that if he kept going past the 39, after 39 weeks or 38 weeks, then he would potentially be too big to come out, because they'd sort of planted a seed in me that I was having a ginormous baby with possibly a big head because he wasn't engaging. I went ahead with that advice, which ended up being a different type of birth, and I'll go to the silver lining in that in a moment. But so I got the gel induction, so they inserted gel to activate the cervix more into the rhythm of labor at 38 and a half weeks. And that's when I went for the walk after the gel, because they said, you can, I had to stay in hospital overnight. They're like, you can go out and get something to eat, or you can walk 10,000 steps if you're crazy. No, they didn't say that. That was my interpretation of it.
That's what you heard.
That's what I heard. They just said you could go out and have a light meal, but we'll walk for that light meal. We'll walk for it. And so and as soon as that happened, that I was in an active labor. But it's certainly the beginning of labor for me is like a walk in the park compared to towards the end, because the contractions will intensify as time goes on. So I call that a 2 out of 10. We went and then had a sleep, and they were like, we advise maybe we give you something to help you sleep, because you're going to have a big day tomorrow. And I'm thinking I'm going to give birth the next day. And I'm someone who doesn't really like pharmaceuticals that much. So, I was reluctant. I was thinking, no, if you can't sleep, you can't sleep. You just have to stay awake. But then the logic of me said, you need a good sleep. Don't ask them what it is, because you'll probably Google it, and because you're a control freak. So just take it and have a sleep. So I slept sort of 6 hours, and then in the morning they checked my dilation, and they said, you're not dilated enough. You're not dilated at all, in fact. So, and once you start an induction process, I will say this to any woman, is you don't go out of that hospital until you've had a baby. So it's not like they're going to go, you know what, we've changed our mind. Go back to your 41 weeks and you go into a more natural labor. You are not coming out without an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to know that when you start an induction, that there's just one path, which is a baby's going to come. And so they inserted more gel. And then I was like, right, I'll have to walk this baby again, use that, my walking and my breath work. And there's a woman on YouTube who does over 50s sort of exercise classes. So I put one of those little YouTubes on in the labor suite, and everyone thought I was crazy because I was doing walking exercises. Like I've got to engage the head because they said his head's not engaged. And I just figured that, you know, gravity wise, if I just laid on the bed hanging around, it would help him. So, and I'd put on an exercise video, this light walking one, I would focus, and then I'd like be between these contractions. And, you know, if you're watching this on video, you'll see like I'd be like going like this, like stopping for a contraction, like a crazy person. And I'd have my hands on my head going, and then I would like wait for it to go and I'd walk again. Play the video, just forward to the end. He will engage, think thoughts, think he's coming down. You know, after around 30 hours goes past in this time, you know, they were like, we've got to, actually, I missed a step. They were able to break my water. So I got 2 centimeters dilated, and they usually, what will happen if they break the waters, your contractions will get stronger, the baby will engage, and you will go further on the birth path. So they broke the waters, and my gosh, I drank so much water in this pregnancy, and I felt there was like an ocean coming out of me because I would who was doing walking videos with water flushing out them, and I'd have to stop. And, you know, this might be graphic for some people, but my partner had to like clean up the towels, and this is crazy. I know. But I was like, I've got to engage his head. So I'm walking and ocean's coming out of me, but we're not by the ocean. Kept going, and we had, you know, I had like different midwives and different shifts, and I had a student midwife, which I was open to. I'm like, you know, anyone want to come in? I don't mind. You're going to learn something from this. Come in. Again, I didn't need a tight knit community. I was like open medical. Come in, watch this crazy person. You might not see a birth like this again. So, you know, after 30 hours, they were like, we'll check the dilation again. And I'm thinking, yeah, he's coming forward. We're like, she's going to say 6 centimeters. And she's like, oh, you're still 2 centimeters dilated. And his head's not engaged. And the thing about this is a baby, the contractions cannot get stronger really without that head engaging. So he's in the position, but he's not moving down. There's no moving down. So they said, look, there's 2 options here. We can either give you the drip, which is, you know, a synthetic drip, but I've had this drip before on another pregnancy, and it's intense. It's like a mega contractions, like it's like big contractions. And I'd given birth naturally before without pain relief. Again, one of my crazy challenges I put to myself. I was like, okay, I can do that. But they're like, but he's you know, he's going to be tired. He's getting distressed. So we recommend if you do this, he still may not engage. And then after 4 hours, we're going to have to do an emergency C-section anyway, or even less if he continues to get distressed. So we highly, highly recommend that you have an emergency C-section. And this is 30 hours at like 11 something at night, probably at 11 o'clock at night. So
yeah. So you're tired by now.
Yeah. Well, I'm like thinking, you know, if there wasn't an option of emergency C-section, I could probably go another few days because I was determined to get this baby out. But I am tired. Like, and I'm thinking more safety. I'm thinking like he's getting tired. Like it doesn't really matter about me, but I can't have him getting distressed and you know, can see early signs of that, and that will get more. I've got to get this baby out. I'm like, just cut him, cut me, bring him out, and let's do this. And, you know, I hadn't really researched C-sections or emergency C-sections, but they move you pretty quick then. And you're, you know, they've got all the staff on call. So when I got into that scenario, there's like, you know, there's a different obstetrician because mine wasn't on call that night. There's a pediatrician, there's multiple nurses, there's an anaesthetist, and there's probably about 8 people in the room to do that C-section because it's an emergency one. And you go in there. I wasn't scared because I knew I was in a great hospital, and I knew that it wasn't at a stage that I needed to be scared. I trusted the process, but I was probably in fear more of, am I going to feel this? Because then the fear brain comes on, and they're like, you know, we're going to put this in your spine, and then you're not going to feel anything. And he's putting the ice on me, and I'm going, I think I can feel that. Like, I'm like, I think I feel it. And he's like, And I'm thinking, God, is he going to cut? And I can feel it. But it's more, I didn't think I felt anything. I was just, at the time, I was just in an emotional state. And one of the things that happened to me in that state was I just was crying because it was all like sudden and unknown. And the crying, I remember thinking illogically, don't let any sounds come out with the crying, because you might move and he might, like, when they cut, they may cut the wrong thing. So don't just silently cry. So I'm laying there just pouring these tears out. And the thing is, I probably couldn't move that part of my body, so it's completely illogical. But in my mind, I'm like trying to control these uncontrollable floods of tears. And it was more because there's a vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I felt really, really vulnerable, but I felt happy vulnerable in the sense that I knew I was doing the right thing. It's not that I didn't trust the process, but you still can't help but feel vulnerable in the unexpected. And, you know, and that scenario. And, you know, it was the biggest blessing in the end. So what was the silver lining out of the birth is because, as you probably might have noticed from this conversation we're having, Jamie, is I'm renowned to be someone on the go.
Mm-hmm.
Do, busy, which is the busy set of my mind. And that's probably partly habit from being a single mom for a long time. And I found that the cesarean, obviously slows you down because the recovery is longer. Like, you can't drive for 6 weeks because your car won't have insurance, and you can't move around and do things. And that was the silver lining. And that's the birth I needed, because otherwise I would probably be now rushing around my kids different places and doing things. Whereas my partner, I've surrendered. The word they say, surrender. It's not so easy when you are someone who doesn't like to surrender. I've surrendered the process of being a mum and, having people do things for me, because I usually like to do things myself. So, letting my partner, do much more, allowing myself to spend more time with the baby, just one-on-one, cuddle time, things that I wouldn't get if I'd had a natural birth, because then I'd be back into the business of life. So, if I said what was my planned birth, I go back to the question you asked me, Jamie, and my planned birth was an emergency C-section to slow this woman down and to enjoy every single moment, because there's this little bubble that you have in the first number of weeks that you'll never get again between you and this baby, and getting to know who you both are and working out a rhythm of who is this person and who is this mother. And that I never had that with my vaginal births that I did with the C-section, because I had to slow down. There was no other option. And that's why my planned birth is an emergency C-section after trying to walk a baby out.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It's forming that new bond with the baby at the very beginning.
Yeah, and I feel like I formed that quicker than maybe with my other girls, because with them I was like, okay, now I've got to drive here. I'm going to go maybe get some groceries. I'm going to take the baby to the first coffee shop and get a takeaway coffee, whereas I'm not doing those things. And I'm stuck at home more, which I'm loving, because I'm allowing that time for him, completely him and I, and I'm letting everyone else do everything else around me. So I know I'm looking a little bit more glamorous today, but let me tell you, as I said, there was a lot of preparation. I got baby spew on my top. This is the second top that I'm wearing. So
oh no!
Don't be fooled by this get-together look. I'm usually just upstairs in a hot mess of hormones, sweating, and they don't tell you about all of the postpartum symptoms you get. And I'm sweating it out and cuddling a baby most of the time.
I don't think I've ever heard of that. Postpartum sweats?
Yeah, so it's the hormones, the estrogen, and that rebalancing. So for all those mamas to be and all those mamas who are pregnant, one of the beautiful things about giving birth is you will smell like you're like a teenage boy who's just done basketball practice. So it's an unusual smell that comes out. And I Googled this because I was like, why are my underarms so disgusting? They smell it right now. I've never had this smell. And I Googled it, and you know what it is, Jamie? What do you think it would be? Why were my underarms so terribly smelly? Because this is actually a nature thing there's a reason for it. There's a science behind it.
Is it like protecting your child from predators or something?
So your child knows where your boobs are. It produces this over sweating, and you get this BO smell, so he can like crawl up to the boob because the
Oh my gosh.
smell is right near where your breast is. So like I was like, oh, it makes complete sense now.
Yeah, that's so fascinating.
Yeah, so there's all these little things they don't tell you. So I was like, wow, it's beautiful. Now I love the smell. I'm like, oh, this like basketball, teenage boy smell. I'm loving it now because that's his way of knowing where his milk is,
Yeah, and so does your baby. He loves it too.
Yeah, exactly.
How sweet. How fascinating.
Yeah, there's so much more like when you start looking into the science behind the symptoms. Like if I had have been smart enough, one of the first things I noticed about being pregnant, and I didn't know I was pregnant at this point, but I noticed on my fitness pal, my heart rate had gone up considerably every day, and then it had peaked right up. Now I wasn't looking at my heart rate and noticing that really at the time, but that would have been the first sign, I think, and I went back onto the thing that tracks the period of time. The moment I conceived, that heart rate was up every day. Because that's another thing. Because the reason being is because you're going to produce more blood, so your blood has to increase the heart rate because you're going to double your blood supply over the whole 9 months. But your heart pretty much from the day you conceive will start going up to accommodate that blood increase and blood flow that's needed.
Fascinating.
So there's lots of all these little things, and you go, wow, it's not just like a thing. There's a reason behind it, and when you kind of connect to the reason, it's kind of like special. It helps you connect to, especially helps you connect to a baby that's not there, like it's in your tummy but you can't see them, and you start to look into some of the things about being pregnant and why and stuff. It makes you feel a connection more.
Yeah, it's a beautiful process.
Yeah, it's a beautiful process. And one of the things I started to grieve whilst I was pregnant was the fact that I wasn't going to be pregnant anymore. Like towards the last month, because I spent so much time with him, just him and I, and I'll never get that back again. We always was just him and I. And, I traveled a lot for work at the time, where I'd go every 3 weeks to a place called Perth, which is a 4-hour flight away and back. And I'd go there for a few nights. And then I'd come back, and I always think of that Perth time, him and I in that hotel room, spending those nights together. And I was like, I can never recreate that. Like, we're never going to have these particular times together. And I grieve it, and I didn't want him to come in one way. And I wonder if does that stop him engaging? Because I even said to my partner, and this is the first pregnancy I said this because I wanted the other 2 hours. I said, I want him for another 9 months. He's like, how big are you going to be? I'm like, I just want him for 9 more months because I don't, he may be my last baby, and in any baby you have, maybe your last baby, right? So I think you've got to in the times where you've got hemorrhoids from being pregnant, from the pressure of a baby, I was like, welcome hemorrhoids, because I want to be pregnant. Welcome. You're only here for a short time. We'll be getting rid of you soon, but you can stay for now as you put the pressure on me and my baby's coming. So I was like, I can put up with these hemorrhoids for another 9 months. Like I was going to, and I grieved it. But now he's here. I don't have the time to grieve it. So I kind of went through the grievance whilst I was pregnant. And I think that's important to note, in the times where those hemorrhoids are upsetting you that day and you think, I've had enough of this. I need this baby out. Just think that these are the last time when you're fully connected. And I want to say here, I'm going to pause, everyone, shout out for placentas, because I've got to tell you, I have so much respect and love for placentas, because that was his first thing he used to cuddle to, and that gave him life. That when the baby came out, I almost wanted to keep the placenta, but it was an emergency and things. But I just wanted to bury it under a tree and plant something and say, I felt sad for the placenta, because the baby is nothing without the placenta. The placenta is absolutely everything. And it goes at the end, and it actually is part of the baby. So when the baby forms, the placenta comes from the baby.
Really?
So it's not itself an entity that grew. It came from the baby. So it's part of the baby. And I was like, my gosh, the baby and the placenta are the same DNA, and they're connected together. And I just felt so much for that placenta. I felt sorry for the placenta. It was so great. I felt emotional for the placenta. I was like, because you have to go, placenta, you've done your work and you're no longer going to be in this world. And you were without you, I could never have had this baby. And without a healthy placenta, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to make a healthy baby. So yeah, shout out to all the mamas placentas out in the world right now, because no one realizes the amazing job they've done, and they're often just like thrown in the trash afterwards. And I have this empathy for placentas because they come from the baby. And the other beautiful thing that the baby's left behind in me, here's some more little science facts, is, he's left his DNA in me. And one of the things, if you read some of the science articles on this, is the baby's DNA does some amazing things. So he's now born, Ned's born, but it basically, whilst you're pregnant and then for a period after, it goes and does little bits of repair work that it finds in your body that could be wrong. Like it helps repair parts of the body. So there's this amazing thing. Yes, when people say, the baby takes the life, the baby's taking the life out of me, I'm tired, but it's going to give you a gift at the end. So when you have those days and you're like, the baby's taking the life out of me, I'm so tired, it'll give you the gift at the end, and it does go in and do repair work in your body. So Google that, the DNA that's left behind, how that works. So I'm not a scientist, so I can't give you the actual science explanation behind this, but I'm giving you the kind of the overall theory. So on those days when you're like, I've had enough, remember what having that baby is doing. It's amazing. There's this whole system to even like I'm going to call help repair you afterwards.
Yeah.
So shout out to placentas and shout out to baby DNA left behind, because they're two of the other things. You go, what products could you not do without? Placenta, baby DNA, mindset.
Yeah, give thanks to the placenta.
Yeah, so shout out all placentas.
Well, how are you feeling? How's your recovery going? It's only been 2 weeks.
Yeah, so here's the other thing, like Dr. Google, we'll go back to that, recovery 6 to 8 weeks from the C-section. Now, that is a theory, but the reality is that would be, if you wanted to like maybe move around a bit, sit on the sofa quite a bit, that would be a true fact. But if you, like me, if I want to get back to 10,000 steps, I'm not convinced by week 6 I'll be doing anything like that, like going for lots of walks with the baby. I'm walking now, but the recovery is a lot slower than a vaginal birth. And if I wanted to get back to, let's say, the old me of like working, cleaning the house, going for these walks, walking on the phone, talking, doing deals, work, like those, I think that's like I think it's almost like a 6-month process to get back to who you really are. And you certainly, I'm certainly not signing up at 6 weeks for a Pilates to do a Pilates course, to be a Pilates instructor. If you're into like a lot of that core work and things, that's a slow build up. So, I think it takes 9 months to grow, a baby. It takes at least 9 months to recover. And so you've got to give yourself time. And the number one ingredient is patience, something I'm not very good at. So anyone who's got any tips on that, let me know, because you need an abundance of patience. And that's often hard to find in life. But be kind to yourself, because I think we have a ability to look in the mirror and say, gosh, you're not looking so good today. And the reality is you're looking amazing. You've just grown this beautiful baby. You were growing like fingernails and toenails and little facial hair and eyelashes and eyebrows and all of these things. And to do that, you have to give a lot, including sacrifice, maybe parts of your body that were the before you to the after you. And you've got all your life to work on your health and get things to where you want to be in life, and to surrender. Because the first 2 pregnancy, I probably wasn't saying that to myself. I mean, I was like reading those things and I was like, yeah, all very well, good, I want to get back to me. Whereas this time this is why I said the silver lining, the pregnancy, the birth I needed was the cesarean, because this time I'm like, you know what, the absolute truth to that. And be careful how you speak to yourself after birth, because I think we have a tendency to judge, and the way we speak cannot often be kind. So is to actually look in the mirror and be proud of what you see, and look at your baby and be proud, and just take your time and not over commit to this getting back to what an Instagram model looks like, or your version of that.
And how have you been feeding your baby?
So, I think fed is best, everyone, not that's the best way to feed a baby. So whatever your individual way of doing that is the best. Last 2 babies I bottle fed, wasn't able to really breastfeed for not producing enough milk, struggling to do both. This time I'm doing both. So offering breast and then topping up with a bottle. He did lose weight in the first week or so, which is normal for babies, by the way. So that's completely normal. But I think I still don't produce enough milk, which you can do through expressing, but it's just more, I was finding it difficult to sign up to thousands of hours of expressing and feeding. And so I'm doing a mix of breast milk and formula, and that's working for me. But, I don't know what'll work next week. So I'm open-minded, like, am I not going to be able to breast next week? Maybe I'm not, maybe I am. I just take each day as I can. And each day I've just been able to do that consistently, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm not putting an expectation of an outcome. Like if I get mastitis and I can't mentally cope and I'm like, that's it, I'm done, then that'll be done. So I think breastfeeding is another journey, and I think it's like a day by day, week by week journey, rather than like thinking I'm going to do this and again pressurizing yourself, because I think we can be pressured that breast is best, and then feel guilty if we can't do that. And I think fed is best, and also whatever you can give. Like there are many mums out there who have to go back after a number of weeks to work, and maybe their circumstances won't allow that as much, or mentally it might be difficult, because it is difficult to be woken all the time and feeding, and everyone's on their own journey. So at the moment I'm doing both, but I don't know what tomorrow's going to be. I'm just open.
That's always good. And mentally, how are you doing?
Mentally, I'm again a marathon. So when I said to you earlier on, I made the comment going that pregnancy, birth, you are going on a marathon journey. It is not a run. It is not a sprint. It is far by over. And just when you think you've got over the hurdle of the birth, you've still got another 10 kilometers to go. You're thirsty and you're tired. And so mentally I've trained for a marathon. So I listen to the right kind of information that I read, or podcasts and things, and I continue that journey. I am really careful of the stories that I tell myself, postpartum stories of where I need to be or what needs to be done, or, and I'm mentally doing well, but it's only because I'm a firm believer that like the mental health is compound interest. So you cannot, like if you want to make like the Warren Buffett type of wealth, he didn't do that overnight. He compounded his wealth. And if we look at like the whole how's my mental health doing now, I've just been doing small things every day that help compound to feeling like today I'm feeling good. I've had maybe 5.5 hours of sleep interrupted, and I'll have a nap later on. So, I have that. I say to myself, you have permanent jet lag, like you're traveling the world. And, I'm careful of the language I use, and I take the time out when I need it. And fortunately, I have a really great network of people to help me. Shout out to partners. If you have a partner who can help you, then they're in part of this marathon. They're the ones who's going to encourage you along the way. They're the ones who's going to carry your water. They're going to help you and take the help. So one of the things I don't like to do is I like to be proud and strong woman, and I don't want to take help. And I'm remember people go, I'll text you, and I go, just let me know anything you need, or you want to, I can drop some meals around. And often we go, I am too strong for this. I have this, take the help. Like if someone says it, they genuinely mean it. Like take the help, and maybe put down the sword for the day, and again surrender, especially for women who aren't good at putting down their swords like me. I've got this, we gotta keep going. Put the sword down for the day, and get into more of that heart space and take that help. That's one of my advices as well.
That's great. Is there anything else you want to add?
I just want to add that I think everyone's on their own journey, and I feel like the one thing that I think has helped me in life in general, whether that's like with the mindset of the pregnancy or is just to keep dreaming your dreams. And if that's to have a baby, then don't believe Google. You're not a statistic. You're an individual. and keep believing in yourself and believe that absolutely anything and everything is possible in this world. And we forget that. Like we just think everything is like down to the science of the stat. And the reality is everything is just down to the path. Like if I had have looked at the birth, like now I go, emergency C-section is my plan. Thank you very much. Why? Because just what's meant to be. And I can see the positive in the unexpected. So I think my advice to women is to dream, be resilient, keep going on what you want, but be open with any silver linings that come on the way, because life does not just go on one journey that we always want. And there's like all these lessons in the way, whether that's, you meet a partner and they have kids and you end up, being a mother to them, whether you're like end up helping your nieces and nephews, or whether you end up having your own baby through a donor egg or naturally, or there's just so many paths to bring the mind, I guess a sense of, I don't like to say the word happiness because I think happiness comes and goes, but more contentment, and looking for that contentment and just trying to take each day as it comes and not live in the future too much, because the future will tell you all sorts of stories, but the only truth is the here and now, and that's all we've got. And I don't know what tomorrow brings. Will I be here tomorrow? What will happen? But I'm going to damn good have a brilliant day today, right now, right here. Even if my baby spewed on me, I've had a little sleep, and it's not going right today. There'll be a silver lining even in your darkest hours.
I would say that you look at your past as it happened exactly how it should be. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you find in the past where you've had those dark times, what you can bring out of those, and we've all had them, not to focus too much on the past because it doesn't exist anymore. The present doesn't exist. So the future doesn't exist. And the only I have right now is this moment. And here's the other little secret. My little secret sauce to life is emotion. So if I'm feeling really terrible right now and I'm having a wave of unhappiness or a dark moment, because I know that emotions are always changing, they're like waves. So I look at the emotions like waves, that there's another wave that's going to come. But that wave might come in 1 minute, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months, but another wave always comes. It's impossible. It's actually impossible to carry the same emotion throughout one's life. Impossible. So just know that, maybe the next one's a deeper wave and then the next one's lighter, or, it's all impermanent. So it's the only truth there is out there is this impermanence. So even on your dark days, you can't permanently feel like that. So that's my truth on your journey and your pregnancy and your life, whatever it is, because we get attached to the feeling, and that feeling is just passing. So when you're trying and you've got dark days and you're thinking this isn't working, that's just a feeling for that moment. It can't continue. Another emotion will come in, another wave. So keep surfing the waves, Jamie. Keep surfing the waves. We love our waves in Australia. We're big fans of the ocean, and get in the water, keep surfing the waves. They'll come, they'll hit you hard sometimes. Sometimes they're soft, but it's a journey, and it's beautiful. And the only time we have is right here, right now.
I love that. And I think you mentioned it before, but do you plan to have more kids in your 40s?
You know what? I'm going to leave it up to the waves. So I'm not going to, I'm going to see what happens. So I'm open to that. So am I going to go back on contraception? I think I will for 6 months or so, because I need to recover the body. I just know that if I fell pregnant next week, for example, week 3, I don't even know what would happen to that C-section scar. It would be terrible. So I'll give a break, and then I'm just going to let I might have another 10 kids. Then I could be on your podcast every year. I don't know.
I would love that.
We might have another 10 birth stories. The woman who gave birth to 10 kids by 55. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to just see what the universe brings me. What pleasure, what pain, what heartache, what beautiful experiences, what will be will be. And so I'm open to everything, anything and nothing all at the same time.
Exciting.
So this is part one, everyone. I'll be back for another birth maybe. Who knows?
What has been your biggest challenge being pregnant in your 40s?
Well, maybe not my biggest challenge, but it's certainly what I see out in some of the Facebook groups I've been in, which are pregnant over 45 and pregnant over 40, is the stigma. I just don't believe in people who tell me stories I don't like, that horror stories. So the mind loves to go down the horror story and create more horror. It's coming to me. It's all going to happen to me. But I think there's so much stigma. I remember one story. I'll give you this story, little one. I didn't actually bite to this story. I had no emotional attachment to it, but this would bite a lot of women. And I was in this clothing store, and I was probably 5 months pregnant, 6 months pregnant. And there's this woman in there, and she's, I said, I'm looking for pants with the elasticated waist and things, and or trousers if you're a UK listener. And she, she was talking to me. She was like 44, and I said, I'm 45 and pregnant. She goes, wow, look, 45, that's beautiful. And then she goes, oh my God, if I was like 45 and pregnant, I'd kill myself. Which is like, that just sums up what some people might think about you being 40 something and pregnant. She goes, I would kill myself. And, my immediate reaction could be like, so offended, awful, again, choose your position. And in this position, that wasn't my journey. That wasn't my thought. And she didn't mean, now someone else could say, gosh, I'm going to give it to her. I didn't say anything. I just kept on talking about clothes, because for me, it was, that's her. She explained why. She said, because I've got 2 kids and I've just got them both to primary, to school. And I couldn't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
And that's her journey. Right. And I respect that journey. I didn't get upset. In fact, it's one of my funny stories. I use it as one of my antidotal, I could kill myself. I'm 45, I'm pregnant. Life is over as I know it. I have no life left in me. Now this baby's going to suck it out, and I've got to do the school run for another 18 years. But that wasn't my thought process and I looked at her, and I just thought, you know what? I'm going to come back into this clothing store. I'm going to keep talking to this woman. And every time I go to Perth, which was every sort of 3 weeks, I'd go in there and we'd have a chat. And I ended up loving this woman. Honestly, she gave me a big hug. She gave me a free item because I wasn't going to come back for a while because I was having the baby. And we ended up forming this little thing together, because I just didn't want to, I wasn't buying into that energy, but I knew behind that energy was not malice, didn't mean it in that way. It was just her story of her version of that. And behind it was a beautiful person who, as I talked to her more and got to know about her, I formed a little clothing try-on friend who I'd come and try on things in the store, and we'd have a great chat. And one of the things, every time I went to Perth, because the place was near my hotel, I'd always go in and see her. And she only worked Tuesdays, and I'd go out of my way to talk to the woman who told me she would kill herself if she was in my scenario. So, I think, that's, you've got to be careful of the stories you choose to listen is my advice there. What you buy into, because you can control, you can't control what people say, but you control how you react, and your reaction to everything.
Yeah. I've had a few girlfriends, in fact, say almost the exact same thing. And it's like, well, that's your story. Yeah. And that's not mine.
Yeah, and you're going to get it. You'll get these stories. You will get pregnant, and you will get necessary. If you want to buy into other people's stories, you will get hurt when you are 40 plus and pregnant, because I've seen it all over these Facebook groups, similar little stories, and these people are hurt. And you've just got to know it's not. Yeah. You don't have to buy into their story, and also you don't have to react to it. I could have gone to her, Jesus, woman, you are a terrible woman. Yeah. And I wasn't going to say that. I was going to say, hey, you know what? I'm interested, because I'm always curious. I love to learn. So I'm like, who is this woman? Why would she say that? Tell me more about who this woman is. So that's how I played the game.
Yeah. I love that. Is there anything you'd recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth?
Actually, let's go back to that. The name of that supplement.
Oh,
I would recommend looking up a biologist, an Australian biologist called David Sinclair.
Mm-hmm.
Find him on YouTube. You'll find him everywhere. He does a lot of studies on longevity.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in longevity, definitely follow him. But if you're interested in looking at this supplement, it's called NMN. So that's November, Mother, November. If you just Google NMN and mice studies and egg quality, then you'll find a whole bunch of literature. If you listen to some of the stuff that he talks about, you'll understand the science behind it. I won't go into that now, but if there was one supplement I would recommend, which again, I wasn't taking for pregnancy, but I just, in my instinct tells me there was something in that. It's this NMN, and I was taking resveratrol, which is another one for longevity. I think your diet and some of the there's a book called around egg quality as well. I can't remember the name.
It starts with the egg.
Yeah, it starts with the egg. I would look into those. If I was trying to fall pregnant, I mean, I'm not going to do that on my new journey. I'm just going to see what happens because if I start to track things, as you can see with my 10,000 steps, like how many things can I track? I don't want to start to getting into the tracking of life. I'm going to see what it throws out. But I would definitely be taking NMN if I wanted to, because it's the only supplement found in mammals to reverse egg quality. So I'm not just saying, so it's reversing the signs of aging in eggs. So one of the things you'll read in the dreadful book of statistics of over 40 and pregnant, the dreaded statistics, it will say, egg quality is I think over 40, 45 and over, it'll say egg quality is terrible. You'll pretty much get no eggs of any quality and it'll be a terrible thing. I mean, it says it in a more scientific way, but I'm amusing the viewers here. But, if this does do this in mammals, as I said, really hard to get a study in women who want to become pregnant and doing these supplements, because you've got to go through FDA and all these kind of approvals, and it's a long-winded process. So they haven't done that. But if it's working in other mammals, and we are a mammal and we are animal, no matter what we classify ourselves as, we still come from nature, then there must be something in it. So I just a firm believer that there's something in that.
Awesome.
So it's definitely making me look 20 years younger. No, it hasn't, but it might have made my eggs 20 years younger. Who knows? But yeah, that would be one of my tips.
How long did you take that supplement before you got pregnant?
Oh, look, I've been following these. There's a Huberman podcast, which is about longevity and science. You can probably look up these things, and David Sinclair, and there's a number of them. And I had been on this sort of 2-year, I need to live as long as, it's not about living as long as possible for me. It's living as healthy as possible without medical issues that I have to that are going to impact my mental health or my life. So I was following these kind of protocols for a couple of years. I was probably on NMN for over a year before I fell pregnant, and it's compounded too. So I think you've got to take it over a period of time to get some of these effects. It's not like you take it for 2 days and it's like, wow, my eggs are 10 years better now. But I definitely think it's worth researching. It's not, there are a whole heap of other things people recommend. I've noticed on these Facebook groups, but they don't really talk about that one, maybe because it's not designed. It's come out on the market for longevity, but one of the, let's call it, the side effects of it is, improving egg quality in mice, reversing the signs of aging of their eggs.
Yeah, that's a great side effect.
It's a great side effect. And you know what? If you Google it, it doesn't have many other side effects. So, because it's a supplement. We're talking about a supplement here. It's easily available in America. It's mainly where most of the studies have come out. It's not a pharmaceutical, so you don't need a prescription.
And what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
Do it exactly as it happened. I would say everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. There's no advice other than you were on your path. It was your journey. Don't look to the past. Just be present in the day like you do as much as you can, and just enjoy it like you did. I knew from 2 previous pregnancies, maybe I didn't take all the enjoyment, and I have done a lot of work on mindset since then. So I would say this maybe for my past 2 pregnancies, but I wouldn't change anything about this one because I've done a lot of that work, that compound interest work, I'm going to say, on mindset. But if I was going to advise any woman who maybe hasn't, is to start with your mindset. Mindset is number one.
Yes.
And do not Dr. Google too much, because it will send you down a path of many sins, many bad things. There's not too many light at the tunnel statistics out there.
That's perfect. And where can our listeners find you on the internet?
All over. Billions of followers. Bigger than Kim K herself. No, you won't really find me anywhere. I'm just a woman who lives a simple life. I think you'll put a link to my Instagram. Feel free to DM me if you need a little chat. If you need a mindset, go. I think if you really want to find someone, go find the David Goggins and the other ones who love to talk out in the world. They'll give you pretty much what I've got is from some of those greats. So even Oprah herself, she'll give you many on her Soul Sundays. So that's what I recommend. But yeah, I'm just a girl with a dream and living the best that I can in my life. So that's my story. You won't really find it out there in a sea of billions of stories.
Well, Ellie, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story.
You're so welcome, Jamie. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to you, learn a little bit. We learn a little bit about Jamie. I really would like to be doing interviews on her so you could learn about the woman behind the podcast. But I learned a little bit about her before. But yeah, it was lovely to get to know you.
And that concludes Ellie's pregnancy story at 45. She just brought so much energy, and I loved her mindset. On next week's show, we have Mary from Fort Worth, Texas, which is actually where I live. She was pregnant at 40 and 44. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next Monday.